You are about to listen to the intersection of faith, talk, and music. The Wildman and Steve Show starts right now.
Steve, you and I were just talking, we were talking about CDs and vinyl, and it's just amazing, isn't it? Because talking about the sound quality of music that people forget about, because many people don't think about the sound quality like you and I do, right?
Right.
Well,
let's be honest. Nothing beats the sound quality of an 8-track tape.
Oh, yeah. I remember the 8 tracks. I remember we had the 8 tracks. And would you believe the 8-track that we had as a little child? There was a song about peanut butter and jelly.
I really have nothing to say to that. The thing is, though, there's this big renaissance of vinyl. Everybody and a lot of young people are really coming back to vinyl, which I'm glad to see. My son only listens to vinyl.
Yeah.
But I don't really see there's going to be a big push to return to 8 tracks or cassettes.
Maybe not, but I kind of see it like the same way of siding. I used to work as a carpenter's helper, so you put siding up, and there for a long time, aluminum was the big deal. Then we moved to vinyl. So That's just the way it goes. So maybe there's going to be an aluminum music piece equipment come out someday. What do you think?
I think I'm looking for a new co-host for this show.
That was a great punchline, though. I mean, I worked on that. That was good.
You actually worked on that. Wow, that's impressive.
Anyway, I'm going to give the floor, ladies and gentlemen, of course, as you know, I'm going to give the floor over to Steve Perkins, Latin teacher and rock and metal enthusiast, also known to all of our fans as Mr. Segway. He's the one that does a tremendous job in making a connection and making sure that he comes up with a creative way to introduce each artist that we have on the show. So, Steve, take it away, sir.
Be honest, wild man, I don't know that I've got anything this time.
You say that every time. Come on.
I do actually say that every time, don't I? Because I just, the thing is, I've got a little bit of a headache, and I'm tired of the over-the-counter remedies, and the Tylenol, the ibuprofen, all that kind of stuff. And I didn't know if maybe could you recommend something? I mean, I've heard some stuff about Wytch Hazel. I've heard that's got some healing properties, so I thought maybe it might go organic today.
Yeah. Is there a reason why you thought of that today?
No reason at all that I can think of, no.
Wow, it just kind of appeared. Ladies and gentlemen, what we are getting at here today, we have Colin Hendra from the band Wytch Hazel with us. Colin, welcome to the program. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
We're doing great. As you can see, we have a lot. We try to be creative, and we like to laugh at ourselves a lot. As you can see. So,
that's good. Yeah,
so
definitely.
Feel free to laugh at us if you want to.
Yeah.
We would prefer you to laugh with us, but either one is fine. But yes, welcome to the show. So, talk to us about your experience as a musician. What our fans a lot of times like to hear when we interview an artist is, originally, what was the motivation that got you started in music in the first place?
Right. Well, I come from a very musical family. In my case, it was I'm really fortunate and lucky to have a mum and dad who played musical instruments. Particularly, my dad plays a lot of musical instruments, and it was one of those things. I mean, there was a point when I was 6 years old, and we had a music time. It was a circle time, and it was music. And I came away from that after really enjoying the percussion section. Came home and said, "Mum and Dad, I want to play the drums." And they were already, like really into music. They played music at church and all sorts of things like that. So it was kind of like, well, let's get him a drum kit then. And then that was my first instrument. I played drums since the age of 6. And it's kind of, it was only really when I was 15 that I picked up guitar. And I just sort of had a lot of encouragement from family and play lots of kind of orchestral things, jazz things, and pop things, all sorts of different experiences. So it's kind of really sort of, I'm lucky to have encouragement from family, really. So
yeah, that's a huge advantage. A lot of people we'll talk to, it's really interesting. It seems like we'll get artists who came from musical families, or the exact opposite, maybe whose families did not support that, or musically was not part of their background. We're a couple of fanboys, okay? We love our music, we love our artists, and so yes, we want to do a show that benefits other people, but honestly, it's a chance for us to get to talk to people that we really like. And I discovered Wytch Hazel in 2020, and in my mind, no kidding, 2020, I will not remember 2020 as the year of the pandemic. I'm going to remember it as the year that I discovered Wytch Hazel. You guys, oh my goodness. And then I started sharing your stuff with other people, and other people that had similar tastes just immediately said, oh my goodness, this is absolutely fantastic stuff. So we want to definitely get in today some of the layers of your music, the writing, and all that kind of stuff. I hear a lot of very specific things in your music. And you guys even talk about on your website, and people made the comments. There's Thin Lizzy, there's Deep Purple. I hear Wishbone Ash in there. What were some of your influences in particular? And then I'm assuming you might know some of your bandmates as well. What were some of the musical influences for you guys growing up?
Well, growing up, I mean, if we go back to a similar sort of age when I was getting into music, my mum was quite pivotal, and she would take me. I remember very specifically taking me to a shop and said, "Well, look all these CDs," and she'd make recommendations. And you think, "What about this?" She said, "What about Phil Collins?" Because that's she's a mum, and I still love Phil Collins. And I had a drum teacher who made me a mixtape, and it had. Remember, it had Michael Jackson, but it also had like Asia, had Golden Earring, loads of classic rock, Free, things like that. Just all sorts. He's really into his classic rock and pop. And the thing is, I don't really feel like I've, in some ways, moved on from a lot of those bands, because it's just classic stuff really resonates with me. And I think I just keep going back to these quite obvious, just big names, like all the things you've said. And I suppose it's only later when I play guitar. I played in a heavy metal band called Eliminator from the UK. I played drums, and in that band, I kind of learned more than your Iron Maiden, your Judas Priest that I'd sort of picked up from high school, and I'd learned some other bands. And one of the things was that I kind of picked up on, what about this like, I'd heard a bit of prog rock, but then I discovered Jethro Tull, And in my mind, Jethro Tull is beyond just another prog rock band. They're very beyond. I think they're probably got to be my favorite band, really. And I'm not really even a massive prog rock fan. So I just delved into kind of, well, I really like this folk influence, and I really like the songwriting, how it just the captures the interest over and over again. Some prog rock, I feel like it kind of takes you on a journey and you can lose interest. Whereas I listen to Jethro Tull and I remember every hook. So it's kind of different to me. And I suppose, I liked these sort of magical sounds and these folk sounds. And then Wishbone Ash was Discovery. And I think I'd already been listening to Thin Lizzy for quite a number of years since high school. So it's kind of a discovery from friends. And then you get into a heavy metal community and you find out all sorts of different bands, and just from friends and playing in bands and playing shows and being at parties and going to festivals and talking to people. I'd go to a festival in Sweden called Muscle Rock, and there'd be people with mixtapes, and you just pick up all. I was like, "What's this band? What's this?" And what I've never heard any French heavy metal, and you discover this, and it's great. So it's just really just from even before we started Wytch Hazel, I was discovering lots of kind of obscure music, but I just always bring it back to those classic bands. I mean, it's. I mean, even Iron Maiden. I mean, lots of people kind of say, "Oh, Iron Maiden's an influence," and some people say, "Oh, yeah, Iron Maiden." Iron Maiden's it's a serious band. Like Iron Maiden is a real serious. They're a serious group. I mean, they've got, in my mind, not in terms of album sales, they've sort of taken over the world with their heavy metal. And I just think that it's, Iron Maiden is a very serious influence from a compositional point of view, and just the sound. I mean, some of the stuff that they've done over the years is just unbeatable. So Iron Maiden is just, I remember listening to Number of the Beast, and that was a real game changer. So that kind of probably started me on the more heavy side of things. But I think with Wytch Hazel, I was already writing songs for a number of years. I wrote songs for another band called, I had a band myself called Lake of Fire. And I sort of learned the trade of writing songs. I just sort of constantly writing songs, and we'd have rehearsal every single week, and I'd bring these songs and we'd just sort of work songs together. So I've basically always been in bands. I mean, it's 12 years ago that I was in Lake of Fire. So it's about 10 years now for Wytch Hazel. So it's been in bands, been around friends. Before that, it was kind of, family influence. So I've just always been around music, and just love it, and just love discovering new things. But like I said, I always go back to the classic stuff in the end.
Referenced a heavy metal community, and it seems to me that there's something about hard rock and metal especially that really is community. And like you said, you go to a festival and suddenly you have people exchanging mixtapes, or have you heard about this, or I just discovered this new band. Why do you think that is? That and maybe it exists. I don't know. Maybe it exists with some of the other genres, and I'm sure it does to some degree. But why do you think there is such a tight community with fans and artists when it comes to the hard rock and metal?
Yeah, I mean, I can only really speak for that particular community, but I think that, and there's probably other kind of, music genre or subgenre communities that operate in a very similar way, tight knit, everyone knows everyone. I think it's I don't know whether I think it's human nature, really, isn't it? To maybe some of it is that people are drawn to people that have similar interests to them. But I think it more than that. It's more that what I've experienced is there is because it's underground, because it's maybe a little bit niche, maybe it's not popular, and there's a tribalism about it, and people are drawn to each other and think, wait, you listen to these records as well. I mean, when, for example, we started Wytch Hazel, and it was our first year of university. I was studying music, and I just made friends with a guy called Josh, who's a guitarist in the band, because he was wearing an Iron Maiden t-shirt, and that's how it happens. You know, we have a shared interest. As I said, Iron Maiden's a serious band. So when you meet someone who is wearing an Iron Maiden t-shirt because they're a real fan, you know that you've got something really quite significant. I mean, because music's so important to me, and same with Josh, you know, you meet someone, you think, actually, we've only just met each other, but we share something very specific, very unique, and we share something that's important to both of us. So, you know, you make friends very quickly, and you know, at festivals, you're like, oh gosh, you've heard of this band who's really obscure, for example, and you're like, wow, there's a person on the other side of the world who's, you know, who's into this band. Yeah, I think it's natural, and there's a tribalism because it's niche. I think that's probably what it is, in my view.
Talking about that, and at least in our circles, what we have found is that years ago, that tribalisms that you speak of was more common, and there were more people involved. I'm curious where you're located there in the UK. What is this general sense that you get as far as heavy metal, specifically the classic sounds of heavy metal? And not the modern day rock that we're seeing a lot of today. Is it still alive in many ways, and is it being supported? Yeah, I mean, it's. I think if we talk pre-pandemic, it's probably the easiest place to start. I don't think it's very much alive, and the thing is, in my view, I feel like. It really should be more, but it's not. I mean, I can only compare to places I've been to a few times. So Germany and Sweden are places where I can make comparisons, really. I think that's the most helpful way of looking at it. In Sweden and in Germany, the scene for heavy metal is just much stronger. And the type of music we're talking about, you know, traditional heavy metal, classic sounding hard rock heavy metal, that it is a very specific drum. You either know or you don't, I think. if you're a fan and you're part of that community. And in the UK, it's particularly like where we're situated, it is a little bit more rural, and you know, Lancaster obviously our closest town, and Preston. But I mean, Lancaster's got a stronger scene than Preston. Preston's quite a big city. It's kind of very dwindling, and it feels like a bit of a shame, because, you know, this is the birthplace of heavy metal.
Yeah, and, absolutely.
And it's in comparison to other countries, it's actually worse, in my view. I think that I think every person from kind of Spain or Germany even or Sweden, maybe not Germany, because Germany is just the place where it's probably the most healthy, isn't it? I think, and of all genres really of heavy music and extreme music, and I think just there's a different mindset, I think, in Germany. Like people go to a music venue on a Wednesday night, and they don't know who's playing, but they'll go and they'll pay on the door and they'll just see, because the culture of it. In the UK, pre-pandemic, you can't even get your friends to come down to a show, and that's probably the same in other countries as well. But there's a lot of people staying in, watching TV, and not going out to shows. There was a lot of that, but I mean, in London, a lot of us. I think it's a bit more tight knit in London. There's just more people, and there's more in a closer proximity. There's more. The rurality of the Northwest is you have to drive somewhere to meet one person who's who's into the same music. So it's not really that strong, but who knows? Like post-pandemic, people of the UK need to kind of wake up, not just for heavy metal, but just for live music in general.
Yes.
People who went to like 2 shows a year think, oh gosh, what was I missing? Now that was amazing, and it's just live music is a completely unique experience, and I just hope that there can be a kind of once it's kind of allowed again, once it's safe to do so. I really hope that there is I really hope that kind of it will some sort of rebirth of the heavy music scene. To be honest, that would be great.
Sure. We hope for the exact same thing. Absolutely. So having said that, Colin, in your experience, seeing and this has been a common thread that we've found with many artists, that having a passion for this style of music, in many ways, you're kind of fall into the minority, at least in this era that we're in right now. And yet here you are as a musician, and you've been playing this style for, as you just said, many years. What has been your motivation that has kept you going, even though that it's not technically the mainstream as it once was?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was just the other day, I was speaking to our record label, and I have a really good relationship with our record label. And I speak quite highly of them. I think they're really good. I think a lot of people have things to say about their record labels and maybe disappointed, but I have a great working relationship, and we chat every week, sometimes multiple times a week, because I'm really invested in the music. And I think we were speaking about kind of losing things at airports, and like we lost all our guitars and our merchandise on a flight to Germany once, and there's all sorts of. We were talking about preparations and hazards of the job, and all the and it's like you have band politics, although we don't really have as much of that with Wytch Hazel these days. Not that we really had much in the first place, but some bands, it's quite a real issue. And I think we were saying, like, he said, why do we do this to ourselves? We're fighting a losing battle. We're playing, obscure or niche music, and sometimes the people in the band are not even happy with you. And and there's all this adversity, and now there's people don't go to shows, and you don't get all these just sort of things that just really hinder the progress. And we were like, yeah, but you wouldn't say, I wouldn't pack it down now. And he's like, no, you've either got it or you haven't. I think it's one of those you're just driven to do it. I think it's kind of there's some times I've spent. I remember, so for example, right, we played at Keep It True Festival in Germany, and I spent probably months, because at that time I was like the booking agent, because I was booking the flights, so we hired a car, even just ridiculous things, and lots of effort, and months of rehearsals, and our bass player wasn't really turning up very much. On the day, he lost his passport, and we got to Germany without our bass player, and we were really stressed, and it was just sort of, it was one of those moments where we're like, why are we doing this to ourselves? It's just such a letdown. We got on stage, and I turned all the, it was probably anger at that point. I was really, really kind of hacked off. I don't know what I could say on the radio. I was really annoyed. I got on stage and I thought, I've got a choice at this point, because I know that I've got a big Marshall stack behind me, and I've got 5,000 people in front of me, and I can turn this frustration into a show. Honestly, it was one of the best shows we've ever played, because we decided to turn the adversity, in a small way, and the frustration, the annoyance, to into a show. We put everything into it, and I think it's just stuff like that. In some ways, when you're fighting a losing battle and the odds are stacked against you, it just means you just want to, you just want to keep going even more. It might just turn it into motivation, to be honest. So it makes you resilient. I think it makes you persevere, because it's not an easy ride being in a band that's not popular music, and it's a dwindling fan base. But we're 3 albums in now, and I think that, what, the perseverance has got to a stage where we know we have more fans, we sell more albums. There's we can afford different things when we go and do shows now, and I think actually we're really glad that we've put that hard work in. And we haven't even played that many shows, but it's I've got a family, I've got 2 kids, and it's having to do this, and I work full time as well, so having to do this stuff on the side is, whilst we haven't done as many shows as other bands, maybe those guys were kind of like single guys, I have a family and stuff, so having to do Wytch Hazel with on my working full time and stuff has actually been really hard work, and I've made sacrifices, and there's been lots of kind of tough things, but you've either got it or you haven't. You've got that perseverance, and it's just something that's in you. I think that's just all I can say. Yeah.
Shaking, see an army of dry bones revive.
I have to confess, I wrote a review of Wytch Hazel 3 Pentecost for Classic Christian Rock Zine, which is a wonderful classic Christian rock website, and I told people not to buy the album. So I've got to come clean, Colin. I told people not to buy the album. My last paragraph, I said, to be fair, Pentecost is not for everyone. You should only buy it if you like and appreciate serious musicianship, driving rock that has its roots in the 70s and 80s, melodies and harmonies that transport you to another time and place, and lyrics that enrich your walk with the living God of the Christian faith. If that is your cup of tea, however, then do what I did. Purchase it, put it on repeat, and listen to the album over and over and over again. I got to say, to me, Pentecost is an album for serious music lovers. You were talking about the serious musicianship of Iron Maiden. And I've listened to the first 2 Wytch Hazel albums. I think they're great. I enjoy them. Pentecost quickly moved into one of my favorite albums of all time. And we're talking decades of listening to music.
Yeah.
It was just so special. Talk to us a little bit about the lyrics. There were things going on lyrically that were so honest to me. And yes, they were Christian, but it wasn't just pie in the sky, God makes things great all the time, right? It's all sunshine and rainbows. It was honest Christian faith, whether it's fighting the battles and standing up to Satan himself. I mean, and then which you think about all those lyrics. I mean, that's great metal material, right? This is great metal stuff. But talk to us a little bit about your lyrics, where they're coming from for you.
Yeah, I mean, when I started the band, the lyrics were, I think, a little bit more abstract. As I've gone on, I've used the Bible a lot more explicitly. And I think some Wytch Hazel songs have come from preachers at church, to be honest. I mean, we've got a really gifted preacher, our church. And he's our elder and our pastor, and he's also a really good friend of mine. And he's just like one of my all-time favorite people, to be honest. But he's just he's a talented musician. He's a bit of an all-rounder, really. He's just a bit of a great guy, and he is a very gifted communicator and preacher. And he just really, I mean, I've read the Bible and stuff, but this guy knows, he knows his Bible, but he's just able to make it applicable. And there's just every single time he preaches without fail, there's an application there. And sometimes it's just been, I've been there on my phone making notes and actually almost come up with lyrics as the preach is happening and things like that. But sometimes it's just been like, I've been thinking, do you know what? There's this passage of scripture, and I just really think that will make a great Wytch Hazel song. And sometimes it's as simple as that. Sometimes I will start a song and there will be no lyrics, and then maybe just some syllables turn into a very short chorus or just like one line. And then I'll realize, I'm like, what is that? And it reminds me of something. I'll go to the Bible and I'm like, oh, that's what it is. And I'll go to the scripture and I'll build the song from the Bible. There is definitely there's an honesty. It's all kind of a lot of the time within the context of a spiritual battle. I mean, I have a very sort of real, how do I describe it? There's a very real threat, or there's a very real, almost like a type of relationship with Satan. It's very real. It's not a the devil isn't an abstract thing to me. Yes. He's very much interested in kind of tearing everything down. He really wants. I look back at my life and things that have happened and think, if that could have gone this way, and that's exactly what Satan wanted, and you basically you're hearing the journey through Wytch Hazel, you're hearing a spiritual battle. It's, there's times when I'm fighting the battle just lying down. Gotta be honest, it's not, the Wytch Hazel songs are about fighting the battle, but there's been plenty of times when I've just sort of let it happen, and just I've been like, and just sliding, but God pings you back, doesn't he? He pulls you back. And I suppose I do write songs about grace as well. There's definitely songs about God's grace, because I think that's the most, God's grace is almost absurd, isn't it? It's just over the top. And, not only what he's already done, the fact he's actually interested in the minute details, knows the hairs on our head. And I think that it's kind of, it's just mind blowing that he's interested in pulling me back to himself, that sort of Father God. And I think that that's a big inspiration for me in that God is a father who is, it's not that he's a soft father, but I think he's a perfect father. And I think I keep coming back to that, and I think about his grace and the absurdity of it, that what he's already done and what he's actively doing. It's just very much everything's just very much in the spiritual realm when it comes to Wytch Hazel and the lyrics. So I'm always pulling from that side of things. And when I'm writing songs, when I sit down to write a song, a lot of the time I'm sat at the piano, and a lot of the time I have no idea. Most of the time, especially these days, and with Pentecost, a lot of the time I had no idea what I was going to write. I just sit at the piano and start writing instrumental music. And when I say writing, with no real, I just put my hands down on the keys and then see what happens. And then, like I Am Redeemed chorus just happens. It just within minutes, it just sort of develops. And I think, oh, right. And I don't want to sound, I don't know how this comes across, but sometimes I'm surprised at what happened. I'm like, oh, that's really good. I'm kind of like, wow, that's how did that happen? But I suppose I can't really boast in that kind of it's I didn't make music or songwriting, so it's it's everything's in the spiritual. And what I'm saying is that the most spiritual thing to me, apart from when I look at my children, I think it's a very spiritual thing, family, but apart from that, these are the two things I think at the moment, particularly I think this past year, everyone's had a hard time. And I think that's spiritually, not been in church, that's really tricky. And I think I'm clinging on to, when I look at into the eyes of my children, I think, yeah, that's real evidence of the incredible nature of God. I look at my children, I think they didn't happen by accident. They're amazing. I look at my beautiful children, I think they're amazing. But it's that, and then when I sit down and write music, I'm in a spiritual place that's very difficult to describe. And I suppose everything's kind of coming out of that place. I'm very much just, sometimes I'll sit there and a song is almost just written, and I feel sometimes that it's kind of written for me. And it's just it's quite experimental, and I just sort of let it happen. I'm very much, most of the time I don't have when I'm sitting down to write a song for the first time, there's no plan. It just happens. And then afterwards, that's when I'm the real hard work, and sometimes it's frustrating because I'm just fine tuning little things like how do I want it to sound on the record. And that's where the planning and the structure and the refining, the editing process is really hard work. Not quite as fun, but it's essential. I'm striving for excellence with Wytch Hazel music, and so. But yeah, the songs themselves, the melody and the chords, they just sort of happen, to be honest.
I would say that's one of the differences. And some bands are saying, look, I'm just trying to write the next commercial hit, and they're really trying to stick to some sort of formula and trying to hit some mark. And it may be commercially successful, but I think the discerning listener picks up on there's just something that's not really honest about that, where what you described there is really just sitting down before the keyboard and really just opening yourself up and letting really the Holy Spirit guide you again, lyrically, musically. And I've got to just draw attention to two songs, and you mentioned one of them, but I Am Redeemed and I Will Not. I think both of those are two of the sharpest swords that someone could have in their Spiritual Armory. Those are just such strong songs. Lucifer, you have no hold on me. I'm a slave made free only by Calvary. And I hear that, and then I hear that same thing with I Will Not. Both of those songs, and I don't know maybe where those came from with you, but I could easily hear those songs speaking to someone who is suffering from any kind of addiction. And it wouldn't just have to be addiction; it could be any kind of spiritual battle, spiritual warfare. But I, for some reason, both of those I thought about, and I thought, boy, I could see someone who's struggling and being able to latch on to the strength of Christ through those songs. Those are just such powerful songs. So I really have such much of a question. I just want to affirm you in that and say, I think those songs will bless a lot of people. I'm sure they already have, because they certainly have me.
I think particularly I Am Redeemed. I think I mean, some of it I can't really remember too much, but I do think with I Am Redeemed, it was a song where I was trying to write it, and I was focusing too much on the sort of breadth of sin in my life when I look back, and I was focusing too much on the gravity of my own sin, and looking and thinking, gosh, just, there's just so much I've done, and there's so many things. I just look back and think, gosh, there's so many things that, that people don't know about. And there's some things I would just never want anyone to know about, the things that I've done. I think, and the thing is, I've spoken to other Christians with you the same, but I think everyone's your own worst critic. But, I look back and think, gosh, I was focusing on myself too much. And I think that it was kind of like, well, there's a difference between condemnation and conviction, and I think that I was in a place of feeling condemned, but then obviously you look to the Bible and I think, well, actually there's another side to this. And I think that the thing is that the thing that stands out to me in that song, that when I sing it back or I listen to it back, I think I remember the lyrics, but something along the lines of, Lucifer, my disgrace, but I will not hide my face. So there's a side to it, it's kind of, I'm being reminded of the disgrace, and it is, I'm really kind of very strong about, it's not just kind of small things that I've done. I look back and think, gosh, I've done some horrendous things, really. But there's another side to it, and I think that, of course, everyone likes to draw a line. Oh, this person's done more worse stuff than me, and it's not about that, because Satan will still have a go. And you look at that and you think, yeah, it's disgraceful, but I've no reason to hide my face because Jesus stands in front of me. So it's kind of, that's what that song's about. And I went on a journey with it, and it started with condemnation. And then it's like, well, you know what? I'm redeemed. Then again, going back to God's grace is just outrageous, really. We think what we've done, and not only is he's not just sort of given us, he's just given us a little free pass. He's just completely wiped the slate clean. It's like Jesus stands in our place, a perfect, specimen, that stands in our place. As a substitution has happened. So it's just that's what that song's about, really. It's really clinging to truth, I think, in that song. Yeah.
Reminding the truth must prevail.
are just inspiring to me. A lot. Number one, the fact that we already explained the passion that you have to do something, even if it's not mainstream, and you have to work full time on this and do this on the side, you're still doing it. And then your motivation is coming from the scriptures. That is so just inspiring to me, because we don't hear too many that are saying that today. There's a lot of musicians, or not just musicians, but just in general, teaching out there that's discarding the Bible. They're saying that the Bible is a old folk book. It's not really anything spiritual. There's not any reality to it. So hearing you say that is very inspiring and encouraging. And I appreciate that. And that's what I appreciate from listening to your music as well. But I do need to ask you a question. And this is a question for a guitarist. You mentioned earlier that you have a Marshall stack behind you, okay? So I got to give you a question, and you have three options, all right? Les Paul, Stratocaster, or other. Which one?
Les Paul.
All right. You're on my team, man. You're on my team. All right, there it is. Yes.
There it is.
Did you have that cross put on it?
Well, yeah. So it's I rewired this guitar with the the toggle switch for Les Paul fans. It's here, so it's usually over here. So the cross is kind of covering up the hole. It's a holy cross. Oh, you'd like that joke.
Absolutely. Very good, sir. We appreciate it. And we appreciate the time that you've taken to be with us today. So can you tell us quickly before we go, number one, where's the best place for people to find you and Wytch Hazel and updates and what's going on? And number two, what are your future plans moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, so the best place for people to go is wytchhazel.com. So that's WYTCH Hazel.com. And that's actually our Bandcamp site. But our Bandcamp site is basically a hub, because you can hear all of our releases in the original quality and highest quality. And you can stream it a few times, and then you've got the opportunity to purchase it, a digital download, and you can stream it on the Bandcamp app. So instead of an alternative to Spotify, I suppose. And we are on Spotify as well, if there's people like that's your thing. And we're kind of on everything. So we're on Facebook and also on Twitch, actually, which I'm going to be doing next. I'm on all those platforms because I think people have their preferred thing they do. And I just, try and I don't really do so much of Twitter, although I'll post it from Instagram. It's all kind of youtube.com/Wytch Hazel. Facebook.com/Wytch Hazel. Everything's kind of neat and tidy. I like it that way. And yeah, like Bandcamp is our page, and you can buy, if you're from the US, you can still buy direct from our Bandcamp and just select the US options, which is coming from Riding Easy Records in the North America. So yeah, wytchhazel.com, which is our Bandcamp hub activity. And please follow us on Instagram and Facebook if those are the platforms you like to engage with. And subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Twitch. We're just on all that stuff really. Yeah. Anything in the works right now? You're working on another project, or
Of course, everything right now is contingent on this pandemic, I know, as far as what's next. But any plans that you have coming up here in 2021?
Well, I'm working on all sorts of different things, and I think that there's a few things that it's kind of experimental. So I'm like, is this going to happen or not? So at the moment, so things like I'm trying to work on, it's on the to-do list of maybe a live stream, like an acoustic live stream sort of gig, and do sort of kind of quite cheap tickets and do Bandcamp live. So that's a plan that's probably most likely will happen over the next couple of months. And then I'm doing Twitch, which is twitch.tv/Wytch Hazel. So it's Wytch Hazel is our profile. So hopefully people remember that, Wytch Hazel, which is, I don't even know, it's basically Wytch Hazel with a T in front of it with other stuff. And so I'm hoping to do from this week weekly live streaming, and I'm going to try different things out. Last week I did live songwriting, and I'll probably do that again. This week I'm just doing me trying to remember to play Wytch Hazel songs on guitar. So that's me next. I'm always writing music, to be honest. And I suppose I've got folders full of ideas or unfinished songs and things like that. And I suppose it's a case of allocating those songs into a certain project. I mean, I wrote a worship album last year, and I just haven't had the time to finish recording it. I'm always writing music, and you'll see a lot more music from us as time goes on. I've also got a Patreon style thing. So it's the platform's called Coffee with a K. So it's ko-fi/Wytch Hazel, and people can support me monthly or a one-off buy me a coffee, and that's really going towards a target of dedicating 1 day a week, not working as full time as much. I'm doing 1 day a week where I can do all things Wytch Hazel, and it's going to be recording demos and doing Bandcamps, boring stuff I already do and squeeze in, but having 1 day, and then I can accelerate what we're doing with the band. So I would really appreciate, probably as well as people thinking about purchasing an album, thinking whether they can afford, a price of a coffee, go into ko-fi coffee.com/Wytch Hazel, and considering that Patreon style thing that, a lot of people support Patreon for artists. And that would really help me as well, because I can just keep doing, because I'm writing songs, but I've got to record those songs, and I've got to kind of make things happen and work with a producer. And, I'm really passionate about what we're doing, and I just want to do more of it, really. And I'm kind of, it's a different than other bands, because I'm kind of running the show a lot of the time, and that's fine. We have like a really nice sort of agreement within the band of what's our expectations and things, and it's very much kind of my baby and my project, and everyone's like really cool with that. The guys in the band, they've got their own projects and stuff, which is really good. And I just want to do more of what we're doing already. So you'll see more releases, and you'll see more projects, and a lot of this year will be kind of a year of experimentation. So I don't have a lot to announce, but there'll be some sort of release, hopefully this year, if not next year. And I'm just going to keep doing what we're doing. Yeah.
to anything else that you put out, because everything we've heard as well has really been inspiring and encouraging and solid musicianship as well. So ladies and gentlemen, be sure to check him out. Check the band out, wytchhazel.com, as he just explained, and you will not be disappointed. Colin, we want to thank you for being on our show today, and we wish you the best, and we'll do this again sometime, I'm sure.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity. Cheers.
It was such an honor to interview Colin Hendra. What I appreciated most about this interview is his passion for sharing faith through his music, as well as getting all this done with a family and a full-time job at the same time. Oh, and it doesn't hurt that he loves the Les Paul, just like I do. We will see you next time. Thank you for listening, everybody. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review at wildmanandsteve.com. There you will also be able to find out more about all the projects we have going.